It is 6 o'clock. I will now call to order the August 27th, 2016 meeting of the East Hampton Conservation Commission. Please note that the meeting is being recorded. Has everyone signed in, or is this list still going around? Thank you. So if anyone hasn't signed in, please grab the list as it makes its way forward. Are there any public concerns, non-agenda items? Jess, do you need a copy?
If there's an extra one, I'll take one, but.
All right. Hearing none, we'll move on to our first public meeting. Request for determination of applicability filed by David Lucchese regarding the garage removal and construction of new garage at 119 Ferry Street. Is Mr. Lucchese here? Please come forward. Would you be so kind? Thank you. Good evening. Have a seat. So, tell us about your project, please.
I'd like to remove my garage, that's detached, and join my garage and add a couple bathrooms. And I'll hold it up. So the garage detached right here.
Yep.
I'll bring it down here.
Has anyone else seen the city's mapping? So I've got 50 and 100 scale. So your project, so this is the fronting stream, it's about 200 feet, and you're just about 100. Based on drive-by and city mapping. It's a 90, so the stream is shown as fronting on the USGS. And there's a 200-foot riverfront area associated with it. But the work is just about 100 feet, and it's on the non-river side of the existing house.
This was an addition at one time.
Yes. Yep. So now what's proposed is removing this existing detached garage. And it's all maintained lawn for here. It's all maintained lawn.
No lawn back there.
Oh, that's not lawn. What is that?
That's just, that's where the big hill goes down.
So the top of the slope is this it?
Where I just correct,
Yeah.
and it starts going down towards the street.
Anyone have any questions, comments, concerns? Relative to the size of this garage, what's the footprint of the existing versus the footprint of the proposed? So this is X by X?
That is 35 by 30.
Yeah. And what's going on here?
That's gonna be the garage right here.
But the addition is also 35 by 38, or?
That's, the new addition's gonna be 35 by 30.
Okay, so
And it's gonna have an upstairs as well.
so basically there's no net change in footprint. Oh, that's very helpful. So this is here?
That's in that one's in front. That's right there.
Oh, okay. So it's looking this way?
Correct. We're looking down this way.
Looking this way? Oh, okay.
That is looking down
Okay.
there.
And then this is the back corner?
Correct.
So this is looking this way?
That is looking correct. That bike trail's right
And there's no tree clearing? Single family residential? From Riverton? Not technically, but it's within our description. The aircraft is in the line. There's no net change. Yeah. Which I think is consistent with the intent.
You're doing a new foundation and everything? Okay, so that's the garage, the residence, and then the resource areas over here on that side. Yeah, gotcha.
There's a current foundation there?
There is.
Okay, so you're removing it, or?
It's slab. Or, what kind of foundation is it?
It's gonna be a 4-foot wall for the part that's gonna have the bathrooms, and then the garage is gonna be a slab. So it's gonna have a 4-foot base around the whole thing.
But it's not 4 foot now?
No.
What's gonna happen to the area where the existing foundation is? Are you gonna plant it with anything, or just gonna?
Yeah,
leave it?
and have grass after.
Okay.
Pretty even before I hope.
This is not Northampton Street, isn't it?
Top of your foot.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is.
it's the street where Donna's
Is there an
mother
area to
lives.
store the materials temporary as you're digging the foundation? Is there an area to store the materials from the foundation, dig?
We're gonna have a remove right away.
So it'll be
Yeah.
Well,
live,
you're
oh, hello.
That's my
Hi.
contact.
Hey.
Hi, I'll take that, thanks.
you're gonna need some of the material to backfill after, right?
Right, there's plenty of area to store.
Okay,
Flat,
On
even
the-
further away.
away from.
Yeah,
where
on
you
this
store
side of
it.
the-
Right, should be over into this area here.
And that's pretty flat and away from.
It's
the
pretty
resource
flat,
area.
yeah, real flat.
All right, I don't have any other questions, I don't think.
Any other questions, comments, discussion? All right, any questions, comments from the public? All right. So, we're being asked to make a determination as to whether or not. Work on particular plans subject to Wetlands Protection Act. So. Make it go.
You might do a negative determination.
I don't think anyone here has any questions, comments, or concerns.
Okay.
So, would you care to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to issue a negative determination of applicability for.
What number?
Oh.
5.
For two, negative determination 2. For the work described in the request.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Okay, so moved. Wait one moment, we can sign and get you your paperwork.
Yes.
Where's find your name? Actually, everybody order. Addition.
I think that's property he owns behind Surnak Village.
I tried to put it in order of. Yes.
Oh.
Check them.
His finger in every pie.
Our copy can be double-sided, okay for you, Mark? Double-sided.
And for you as well?
Yeah,
And I'll
thank
scan the copy as well.
Yep, that'd be great. So that'll just take 1 moment.
It's a copy.
It's just a copy.
No worries.
Yeah. Can I have this? Thank you.
recycle bin right behind you.
Is it? Oh, it's usually in the corner. Thanks for pointing the obvious. Just wait for the paperwork to come back before we move on. And you hope to get started?
Hopefully so.
So copier.
Keep asking about getting some elevator music for you, awkward. But it hasn't, you know, it just hasn't come in yet. That's right. That's reminding me.
Good saying.
Used to have something to do.
Thanks. Original is Carl. Thank you, sir.
Perfect.
Do we have staples? Does it have any staples? You're all set. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
You don't like our decision, you think you'll?
Thank you.
Thank you, have a good night. Have a good one.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
All right, Karen, have a paper clip for now.
Okay, that's fine.
Dave, can you pass?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving along to the next item, a request for determination of applicability filed by Mass Audubon, for trail relocation at Arcadia Wildlife Sanctuary at 127 Combs Road. Hello. Thank you.
Please, I'm Watson Heiser, regional scientist for Mass Audubon, and it's when we had a chance to review the submitted by my colleague.
So, can you describe the work?
Yes, there's a short section of trail that runs on the north side of a pond, wetland area at Arcadia behind the Nature Center, and runs up a fairly steep embankment before reaching a plateau. The idea behind this proposal is to make a couple of switchbacks along that slope to ease people's ability to allow access for people who can't handle the steep slope, improve footing and so forth, and to minimize the potential for erosion. That work would be part of a project funded in part by a DCR Trails grant and done as a part of sort of a trails series of workshops that Arcadia and Mass Audubon is hosting this fall. And it's pretty straightforward. There's no, I've reviewed the path. There's no large diameter vegetation that needs to be cleared. It's largely, there's essentially no understory in the area, probably due to deer. And it seems fairly straightforward to me to just realign the path.
So, this says 220, it'll result in 225 feet of new trail because of the zigzag.
Yes.
And then 130 feet of trail closure. So when the sections that are outside that footprint are abandoned, they just be allowed to revegetate?
I think their plan is to collect ferns or other hardy material from outside of the resource area and plant them in the new trail, or the old trail, the abandoned trail section, to allow, to essentially dissuade people from walking in those areas. Probably some brush and other debris would be more another visual.
To provide some sort of temporary visual barrier to foot traffic to allow it
Discourage,
to restore. And this is, so if you were to walk around the end of the visitor center, so you walk toward it and then you go to the right and you go
Correct.
around the back and you go straight back, is that
Yeah, you
Straight
get,
back and up the hill?
there's the bridge, that goes across what's called the fire pond.
Mhm.
And, then it's just the hill that's immediately on the north side of that little bridge. And, the first switchback is fairly small. I think it diverges 40 or 50 feet off the existing trail and then before it loops back in. The second switchback, I talked with Jonah about it. I'd say arguably it's not needed. The slope kind of lessens, yeah, as you get to the top. So there's whether they end up having the time or ability or desire even to construct a second arm that goes farther out. I'm not sure. That's obviously, like I say, part of that trail program. So it really depends on how much people can do during that workshop.
So what is entailed to construct the switchbacks? Is it just clearing the vegetation? Is it grubbing? Is it
I think their
some
plan,
leveling?
my understanding is that there's going to be potentially a small sort of cut and fill to make it for the trail to run up. And that would involve clearing off the leaf litter and duff, then essentially making a small cut. I don't know. The cross slope, it's not that steep a slope, and especially if you, along this switchback, I don't know what the slope is, but it wouldn't take much to make it'd be a few inches cutting into on one side and on the other.
So it's not, we're not talking feet?
No,
Okay.
no, it's a modest cut.
And the timing of this was to occur during the workshop coming up?
Yeah, I think it's in October. There's a series of them, I don't remember the exact date.
I don't think it actually says, it just says it's a 3-day workshop, trail work over the course of 2 days. Hand tools. So I guess the only thing that I would look for would be to use of a straw wattle or similar minimally invasive erosion control barrier.
On the other side, or just on the side where there's no one?
Just on the side where there's a wetland.
Okay.
Between the limit of and resource area.
Sure.
Does anyone else have any questions, comments, concerns?
Will there be any signage or outreach to explain to people why you're doing it? I'm just wondering if there's people who frequently use that trail, whether they'll continue to cut through.
Yes. I think Jonah comes from a sort of resource use background of SCA, and he's very keen to visitor experience and interpreting sort of why we're doing this. Honestly, expect fully that there will be signage and materials available.
So does anyone have any other questions?
Just all the material you're removing from the cut, you're applying to the other side of the trail, just to balance that out, to flatten it out.
Yes.
So there's no material being stockpile removed from the area or brought in.
Correct. There's no fill coming in from outside.
And the surface of the trail is just gonna be soil, compacted soil?
Yes.
By foot traffic mostly?
Or
Not-
hand tools.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Right. Any questions, comments, concerns from the public? None? Anyone? So this is within the 100-foot buffer zone of the DVW. Anyone here to? Anyone find that?
I'm gonna do the same thing I did last time.
We
Do
talked about,
48-hour notice prior to inspect the straw walls.
in addition to a straw water,
Yeah,
so.
okay. All right, I'm gonna issue a negative determination of applicability 3 with conditions of the straw wattle installation prior to work on the wetland side.
Yeah.
And 48
48-hour
hours
notice.
before the start of work.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Can you do it?
You want me to do it?
Standard practice.
So we can read from this today.
Makes it good listening.
Jonah used to be my boss at SCA. He was on my side. I'm just like, if you didn't remember that.
He's on vacation this week for years.
I missed his birthday. Is it good?
Just hand us the.
No, I gotta see what stuff I got under control.
It's pretty
Well, how'd you both have those?
Is it? It's definitely fall apart.
Yeah.
Alright, same deal. Just make sure the pages are all in order. I will, thank you. Alright. Just take a moment. How's gonna be in Arcadia these days?
Good.
Any good sights?
I'm aware there's been a red-tailed hawk that's been hanging around the visitor center for over a year now. It's the young one. But a lot of people have gotten some really nice photos of it.
I've been seeing some of them.
It's just like right there. It landed even on top of someone's car. And we were coming to get into their car because we went to this other car. And they were like,
You look concerned
just
too.
sitting
Shoe.
Talking to somebody a couple of weeks ago, who, they were hanging out in New Hampshire, and a red-tailed hawk came down and grabbed a guy on the head and scratched him, so she had photos of his head. And, yeah, so like for the rest of the time up there, they could see the hawk up in the tree, and they were just watching it every time they go outside.
Wow,
Wow, yeah, maybe they weren't
Yeah.
that aggressive.
Dogs Hawks have a reputation for
Really?
doing that, yeah.
I'll have to check and make sure that I'm not mixing up
Sure didn't know
the
there's one
variety.
below.
No, yeah, no, it was definitely somebody's head.
Has it been washing their hair?
It was kind of a shiny bald head.
Thank you. You're all set? Thank you, sir. Hi, Steve. Nice catch.
Thank you.
All right. All right, we have no requests for certificates of compliance. Emergency cert, spill response cleanup actions relative to tractor trailer truck rollover on I-91. We did receive correspondence. Oh boy. Yes. From Derek Volkin, who is the licensed site professional of the LSP, associated with the tractor trailer truck diesel and motor oil cleanup. So there was a spill on August 2nd, and DEP was overseeing the initial actions, and apparently there's additional cleanup to be done. So he has requested an emergency cert from the
Wait a
commission.
minute. What's the, what were the resource areas impacted?
So he is requesting this relative to 100-foot buffer zone and floodplain.
Oh, okay.
It extends up quite a bit.
What's the LSP report say, how much needs to be cleaned up, if I may through the chair?
Let's see, it talks about 150 gallons of diesel fuel that was released. He has not quantified. 2 to 3 yards was removed from the slope. 60 yards removed from a 200-yard stretch of drainage swale. And vegetation that was oily vegetation was also removed.
Did it get into the swale, drainage swale?
Yeah, he said
It
they
was in
removed
the swale.
soil from the swale.
Oh, oh.
After the
Um,
accident.
What did it discharge into, it didn't get into wetlands or a stream?
Went into catch basin, no vegetated wetlands.
So you have not yet issued any kind of emergency
We
permit?
just got we just got this,
Oh.
Days ago.
yeah,
See,
late last week.
have they been doing any cleanup since the spill?
They did some initial stuff,
Not that I'm aware of.
that's no additional.
So technically, it's not an emergency anymore.
They're still in their IRA window, aren't they?
Yeah, you can issue, 60 days.
Yeah.
But typically, if they stopped after a couple of days, it's no longer an emergency. But you have the discretion to issue the emergency.
Yeah, what I
They
was
should have
thinking,
asked for it like
within-
3 weeks ago,
Yeah.
2 weeks ago.
August 3rd or 4th.
Yeah, that's what they should have asked for.
And what I was thinking was, and you can tell me if we can do this, is having it retroactively, have the start date at August 2nd, which basically means it falls within their 60-day IRA window.
Regulations don't say you can't, but, that's a pretty long retroactive period.
Was DEP was taking the lead.
Yeah, but that only
DEP,
applies.
BWSC, not
Yeah, but-
wetlands.
Yeah, but that only applies for 24 hours or 48 hours. After that, if they're doing any work after, I think, 48, then they need an emergency permit from the Concom.
So the question is, do we want to issue an emergency cert, given the period of time that's elapsed? Or do we wanna require, filing I mean, if we're not gonna issue an emergency cert, I would say there's no point in requiring an RDA.
Not if you know it's gonna require a notice of intent.
If they're in floodplain, but the work is a limited
Typically, what they
project.
should have done, DEP, their wayside cleanup, their orders are good for, figure out it's 24, 48. After that, they need an emergency permit, or if they haven't done any work, it's, it's not an emergency anymore.
They've already abated
That's my
the
opinion.
immediate
Yeah.
emergency.
So you can, I don't care which way you guys go.
Mm-hmm.
If you feel it needs notice of intent, with that way, does he say how long the period is for the rest of the cleanup?
There's not very detailed documentation provided. It's more a summary of what was conducted under DEP oversight as part of that initial response.
I wouldn't backdate it to the second or third, that's kind of bogus, if you ask me.
Yeah, I just don't want to give them 60 days for an IRA cleanup from today, because that would exceed their BWSC.
Oh, you can also, don't
deadline.
forget, it's up to 60 days. You can say, it doesn't have to be 60 days.
No, it says no later than.
So what's this RWA, IRA, what are we talking about?
LSP decided to
Immediate response action,
Yeah.
IRA.
So we only have the authority to issue a 30-day
No.
emergency
No,
cert.
under,
No,
under,
under
beat-
cleanup,
under
you
oil
can
spill,
issue
you
60.
do up to 60 days.
Yeah, but
That's
only
something.
under MCP cleanup,
Uh-huh.
under an immediate response action plan.
Okay.
So the question is, do we want to require a notice of intent? or do we wanna issue an emergency cert? And if we issue an emergency cert, what period of time? Because the information they provided is, or do we wanna ask them, I don't necessarily wanna go back and ask them for more information because it's already been, you know,
3 weeks.
3 weeks. They sent this email Thursday, August 18th.
Did DEP contact you about this bill? How did you guys?
When it first happened, yes, they contacted, I actually got initially a call through DCR because DEP couldn't figure out how to get in touch with somebody in East Hampton.
Because the website's
So the Northampton office, DCR office contacted and notified us and gave us a couple names of people that were working on it. And then I went to the mayor, and informed her, and then Concom was notified separately. I think it was a second phone call that came in that day that wanted to specifically notify Conservation Commission, and then Jay went out there that day to go investigate what was going on.
But nobody asked you
Nope.
for an emergency permit?
And
Not
I
at
was
that
reaching
time,
out to
no.
you to coordinate with Brian Harrington about whether or not DEP was gonna issue an emergency cert or if Concom needed
Yeah,
to, because
that's
I was
what-
about to go on vacation.
Yeah.
I don't think they knew whether they needed one or not. They still hadn't figured out the, how far the spill had
Oh, okay.
happened, and what happened
I
is that it
remember now.
spilled and then it rained, and
You
so
get
it
like
was
an
the
inch of
rain
rain
that
after the
washed it
soil spill,
down.
fuel spill.
The spill was, the location of the spill was quite a far away from any jurisdictional area. It was the rain that carried it
Okay,
down,
yeah.
so.
But is there currently an imminent threat to public health or safety? Or is there time for them to file the appropriate paperwork?
They don't say, so I guess we go back to them and ask if there's an imminent threat to public health or safety.
I can find out tomorrow when I go to work.
Okay,
Talk
so
to
we'll
emergency
just
response folks.
hold off. Yeah, if
Yeah.
you could do that, that would be great,
And I will let you
because,
know, I'll let you both know, and then if, you know, our emergency response folks say, yes, it should get cleaned up,
then we can issue.
then one person can issue and then gets ratified the next meeting.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, there's really, the sketch that they provided, I showed it to an LSP, and it's not terribly detailed. It's, again, it's samples that were taken, not where they intend to.
Is DEP CC'd on that?
This came from the LSP to conservation, so no, I can forward it to you.
If you have electronically, and I'll just go talk to emergency response.
Okay. Moving on. Little fly. Sorry, little fly.
As long as it's not ticking.
Nope. Beginning to. All right. Next items on the agenda, status of enforcement orders. Bernard Gall, 37 South Street, no updates due at this time. Bernard Gall off Groveland Street, and Bernard Gall, former Davies Farm, both subjects of the DEP investigation, no further comments at this time. 47 Caroline Circle. Jess, did we ever ask you to, or have you ever located the subdivision plans for that area?
I'm not sure if you asked me to do that or not,
Is
but I
that
can try to do that.
something we can try to look into?
Yep.
Okay.
So you want the subdivision plans?
Specifically, something that shows the road layout and any drainage structures,
Or any cross
cross culverts.
culverts.
Cross culverts that were proposed as part of the subdivision,
Mm-hmm.
and you want the right of way? So you want-
Right of way and or easements. All right. Are there, next item under that is Autumn Properties LLC, rear 161 Northampton Street. Dan Buttrick and I played catch-up this afternoon before the meeting with Jay and Mark Stinson to view the area. Vegetation's been cleared, but there's been no soil disturbance or fill. So, I guess, I believe that it's without having formally delineated the boundary, that there's a forested wetland. There are defined stream channels. So, I guess I would be satisfied if the area, if we issued an enforcement order, identifying that, you know, there's no further work to occur, monitoring the area to allow reestablishment of native vegetation, monitoring and managing for invasive species within the footprint of disturbance, and putting a period of time on that. How do other people feel at this time?
Sounds pretty reasonable to me.
We discussed the monitoring thing last meeting, but we were just not really decided.
Well,
on issuing an
it's-
enforcement order, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very wide path. So I think that, I don't think there was doesn't seem like there was an intent to actually develop, because we all understand that it's a jurisdictional wetland and there can't be development back there.
Right.
So, so I can draft an enforcement order. What kind of term are we talking about? 2-year, minimum? Seems appropriate for revegetation. So,
That sounds fine.
okay. Alright, so, we'll pull that together and, yes, Mr.
Are
Simpson?
you looking for him to hire someone to come up with monitoring reports or not?
I guess the question is there anyone qualified
Well,
to monitor or
I mean,
independently?
um, the enforcement order, how is that, when any enforcement order, I'm just asking a procedural question. So you mentioned 2 years, I don't have an issue with that. Does it expire, or do I have to get a certificate of compliance?
It doesn't have a certificate of compliance, but we would basically,
You would apply.
right, we would give you documentation that the terms of the enforcement order have been satisfied, and that it's lifted.
So, just say, for example, 2 years comes and I guess there'll be a site visit and everything looks good. If that's what you'll do, you'll just sign off. What would monitoring accomplish other than letting me know that I'm going backwards, I guess?
No, so there would, I would also include a management component. So the monitoring is to see if anything's happening, and then you would report back, and there would have to be some sort of management component for invasive species alone.
Okay,
So the goal is-
that's what I was.
Yeah, and the goal is, so when an area is disturbed, it's likely that some of the species that come in to revegetate will be less desirable than the native species.
Yeah.
And as we all observed, there's plenty of poison ivy, even though that's native. That might be a good deterrent. There were some exotic honeysuckle bushes. There was very little multiflora rose and very little Japanese barberry. There was some oriental bittersweet. Those are pretty much the most common woody invasives that are gonna come in. I didn't notice any garlic mustard or stilt grass.
So, I'm well versed with honeysuckle. If that appears, then what am I supposed to do? I don't mean that facetiously. Am I supposed to remove it or bring you out there?
I would say document it. And then we would do a site visit. I think the plan should include I don't want to see ground disturbance.
Right.
Because that just exacerbates things, but I would say spot treatment.
So in your enforcement order, you're gonna just provide some language that you would like to see a management plan,
Mhm.
and then I will have to hire someone to help me with that.
If you feel that's the necessary step.
I know what honeysuckle is, but the other ones I don't know.
Okay. So, essentially,
Okay, I understand.
so that's what we'll be pulling together,
Mm-hmm.
prior to, and so that we can formalize at our next meeting.
Yeah, that's
Whatever
really
that
your,
date is. September 12th. Any questions, comments, concerns? Mr. Hagan?
Dan Hagan, 24 Highland Avenue. I just wanted to appreciate Mr. Stinson coming out from the state to look at it, and it sounds like it's a well-thought-out plan. I guess our neighbor, I don't know how much you're aware of that neighborhood, there's been a lot of water issues in some of the residential neighborhoods, and I guess their one concern was it does pitch, when you saw it, it pitches down sort of from that parking lot. And, you know, we haven't had rain, and I guess that was the thing that came up last meeting of a berm or something at the top where the macadam, but I mean, if you feel it's sufficient what's done here, I mean, I guess with the board, I guess I'm just looking at.
It's the commission's enforcement order. They're quite well aware of the issues, much more than I am. So but there was no berm installed at the time. I mean, the only alteration out there was the cutting of vegetation. So the commission really doesn't have the enforcement ability to require a berm.
I guess I don't mean a permanent berm. I mean, I guess what I'm concerned about is, in other words, where the vegetation is now gone, if we had heavy rains, is there gonna be any type of erosion that's coming off?
I'm not a hydrogeologist.
You don't know.
But, you know, the commission's much more aware of the site than I am. I'll leave it to their discretion, but again, I think for the amount of disturbance, I think it would be kind of difficult to require something like that under the regulations.
As I said, it sounds like a thought-out plan. As I said, that was one of the concerns in the neighborhood, of the way it pitched down, that there, there would be erosion or something.
There are some channels, they look like they've been there for a while.
Right.
For
But it has
sure.
been dry. I know that
Yeah,
we
it's
went,
been
they
there.
took the samples, you had to go down a little ways to get them.
Yeah.
But the soil type, you know, is very key out there. You know, it's not doesn't infiltrate too well, as you guys know.
Mhm.
So again, it's kind of tough for the commission to require something when, on something like that within the regulations, and they do a very good job of staying within the regulations, so.
You said, David, you said you dropped off the
I
previous
submitted them
permit
at the last
files?
meeting.
Okay, so I guess I would wanna just take a look at that, so I have a better informed
Yeah.
position on the site plan for the site. Cause we did see the stormwater basin there, and so
Yeah.
the site drainage is directed to that basin.
Right,
And then that basin outlets, but the disturbance took place
uphill that.
uphill of that,
Yeah.
so. Okay. All right, so I will review that as part of preparing the draft, and then we'll have that ready, and,
So, when that's done, you just give it to me, I don't need to speak or talk. I
you can
just accept and move on.
yeah, you can be here if you want, we can send it to you, we can have you
Well,
pick it up,
Yeah, we'll just be in
wherever you
contact
want
with
to be
it,
on
yeah.
September 12th.
I'll be at hockey practice, so.
Okay, then.
Alright.
That's
Thanks so
fine.
much, thank you.
Thank you for your time, especially this afternoon.
Yep, that's it.
Okay, so I will. All right, moving on, do we have any open space updates? No. All right. Mount Thomas Estates expires October 10th of this year. Any updates? No?
Want me to reach out to somebody, if I can remember who to reach out to?
Possibly. If there's any additional work to be done, it either needs to be completed by October 10th, or they need to request an extension no later than September 10th.
When we were last out there,
In
we
the
were
rain.
in the rain,
Yeah.
freezing, we were looking
Right.
at, the grading, the stormwater basin, and function and all that and everything, and so I guess we don't.
So that was when someone had expressed some concerns also that they had cut a lot of vegetation, but it was really in accordance, they were maintaining the stormwater basins in the
Right.
perimeter.
Yeah, and so our understanding is that the condo association was looking to the
Builder.
builder.
The developers who acquired the property mid-development.
Yeah,
And so would any work that they were doing to maintain or clean up the stormwater basins or kind of prepare them for a turnover require that order of conditions not expire? Because it looks like that expiration date is coming up.
It is, it would depend
2
on
months.
whether or not it falls under O&M, which would be ongoing conditions.
Maybe somebody should reach out to them and say, somebody can reach out to them, and I will reach out to them and say, conditions is set to expire. What's
So
going on?
just Dan's gonna.
Dan's gonna do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
If I can find their contact information.
What's a little confusing, I think, is that, the past representatives that have attended meetings are homeowners in the association,
Right.
and they were sort of taking the initiative to make sure that the developer was doing everything that they needed to do. So we haven't actually seen the development team in here, we've been seeing the members of the
We
homeowners
met the
association.
2 phases of the development team who took on the project.
Out on the site visit?
On the site.
On the
Okay.
site visit, and then prior to that, when they acquired the project, they came in.
Right.
So they're not completely unknown.
Okay,
It's just been a while.
okay, so you can dig through your emails and figure out who it is.
Okay. So, Paul Street Extension, Jillian Estates, we have received these 2 weekly updates. August 12th and August 19th. Everything appears to be intact. Silt sacks appear to be in catch basins. Construction is occurring. Just forwarded these, but if anyone wants to take a look. So I don't think there are any issues out there.
This is the one I believe that he said he wanted to do bi-weekly reports. Is that Paul Street?
Last week, or,
In the email.
oh,
it said that.
I missed that.
I only looked at the reports. So I'll go back and see if he wanted.
I think he requested to do bi-weekly reports.
Yeah. How does everyone feel about that?
Yeah, he's asking that in the text in there.
Okay.
I think the site's stable enough. It doesn't, we're not getting rain every day here.
I believe he did say too that they continue to monitor if there was.
If it
a
had occurred,
rainstorm.
yes, something, yeah.
So
It says they'll continue to monitor if there's a heavy rain event.
for what period of time do we want to put a time period on it?
He was gonna skip a report out to September 2nd for the next one, so I guess that's in 2 weeks.
And the parcel that they're working on now is one of the ones that's up against, right, I think it's right.
It's
near
the end of the
resource
street,
area.
right?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, once they get that parcel stabilized, then I don't think any of the other ones are really that close.
right, they're not near the top of the slope, the
Right.
way these have been.
Yeah.
I think we need to fix this.
So it's sagging a little bit. Dan, you could do a site visit with Mark Reed
Sure.
and ask him about addressing the sagging silt fence.
Yeah,
It
it
was
doesn't,
a
it's not clear, 'cause it's
straw
all in shape, it's down behind.
I think that's just
Okay.
okay.
Right here.
Well, in that particular area, there's really nothing going on ever again, I don't think.
Yeah, that was the
Yeah.
underground infiltration chambers.
But it's pretty
And then
flat.
this
It's
is
pretty,
the outlet.
it looks stable, the grass is growing in.
So
So
this
in
is
fact,
just stable.
yeah.
The water that was there is breaking
I
down.
guess my inclination is once they get the stockpile off that parcel,
Okay.
then,
Then it's pretty flat.
yeah,
And
then,
as long as their erosion control barriers are intact.
exactly, then I'm
So-
fine with going to bi-weekly
Keep those
reports.
together.
but
Okay,
kind of
so is everyone comfortable with that?
Twice a month.
Yeah.
Yeah, bi-weekly
I'm fine.
reports
Especially-
once-
Especially if there's a big storm, he's gonna do a report, so.
So once stockpile is removed from site?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll let them know that. Okay.
Meaning the large stockpile here, right?
Yeah, that one right there. It was stable until they excavated it for the residents. Now it's not really stable
It's sort
anymore.
of right next to the trail.
Jess, any updates on Pleasant Street Mills?
No updates.
Okay.
I had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That steep slope that was supposed to get.
They fixed that.
It's covered in mulch right now.
It's gonna get planted, so the
Yeah.
mulch is there, so there's a
Okay.
jute cloth underneath it to sort of keep the mulch from coming down. And then they are going to plant it. So
But it's in much better shape than it was.
Right, it doesn't.
there's still plant material that's set to go in there though.
Okay, I wasn't sure if that was the.
No,
It's
that's not the
the
final.
residents.
No, it is maintaining and controlling what the big gullies that were starting to
Yes,
occur.
lot number five.
So,
Because our plans don't say 31 Paul Street.
Okay.
Okay.
No, just that that site is stable. It may not be the final version, but it is stable.
When are the plantings scheduled?
Oh,
Hopefully when
you
there's
know.
Not quite as,
Not as fast as I would like them to happen.
So I know the we've had this conversation. The contractor is generally required to replace things, but the goal should be to get things to live.
Right, so there's a lot of plant material that's toasted right now
Yeah.
out there, and so, but he's not gonna replace it until at least September, till
Okay.
the temperatures start cooling off, so
Which
that.
makes sense.
So there's a whole long list of punch list items that we're still taking care of, and that vegetation is one of them, but we're gonna hold off. And replanting grass is gonna hold off until the temperatures come down a little bit.
Sounds good. National Mills 15 Cottage Street,
I don't see any activity.
anything? No word, okay. I haven't heard anything from Terry Smith regarding the Oxbow or Town Beach regarding certificates of compliance. So, have you had any correspondence with him, Jess?
No, not at all, it's kind of disappeared.
I'm sure he's working on other projects. Okay. Send an email. Should have asked Mr. Boyle about 184 Northampton Street. Looks like work is continuing.
Good work continuing, the site's stable.
Yep.
They have a foundation in, doing site work.
Lathrop, they actually held off, due to thunderstorms in the forecast, but there's not been another update
I
regarding
thought
work.
there was one that they were gonna do it like 2 days later.
They did, they did send one
Did
a
they
couple
send
days
follow-up?
later, yep,
Yes.
and then they were going to do it, and I haven't seen anything come through email since then.
No, okay. PCT Mutterfield, East Street, parking and accessible trails. So the commission received, we received 2 construction reports, one with a typo on the cover sheet. I understand how that happens. So the site looks relatively stable. They've got some erosion control barriers are still in place. We also received a request for certificate of compliance. However, it doesn't meet the requirements of condition 51. So
What was
as-built plan,
Okay.
Site photographs. I mean, I know they've been providing site
Right.
photographs in the weekly reports, but I responded to Mark Reed and requested that he provide the information required in the order.
As-built and
As-built, photographs. And then, so unless he intends for the cover letter to be the signed statement, there's no real summary of compliance. I mean, other than what they've been doing, but there's no in one place. So, this will be on the next agenda if that information's provided, but if not, then it'll get bumped until it is.
And there were no ongoing monitoring conditions in that order?
There's stormwater management associated with their parking area, right?
I think so.
Yeah, so, that's gonna be ongoing.
But we
And-
can still issue an certificate?
Yes, yeah, it gets written so that those conditions are ongoing. But the as-bilt's particularly important when there is a stormwater management component. Hopefully that will be provided. Distributed.
Does anybody remember they pushed the mulch off of where they had laid it in here, up to East Green Street? Are they just gonna leave it there when they take the silt fence down?
Well, I think the silt has been removed, like, along, they had silt fence along that, and they removed this, to put the wooden borders in. That really protects that culvert area.
And then, so the mulch is still out here?
There's probably some mulches, over the side there, but nothing that looks bad.
So for the certificate of compliance, we'll have to do a site visit?
Yeah.
But if you wanna go out there prior to that, and take a look, that's great.
Sure.
In all your free time, before the first.
It's in my neighborhood.
All right. Williston Northampton School, cross-country running trail improvements, off Taft Ave. We've received updates, photographs of the bridge. With the wood decking. Have you been out there
Yeah,
lately, Jack?
last week, the site's
Stable?
stable, yes, everything's fine. It was before the wooden decking was on, it was the steel across.
How'd you get across?
Well, the steel was across.
So you went
There's quite thin line.
You could
just
step
for
over the
us.
water. There was,
No,
there was,
on right now.
the water was about a half an inch deep and
Yeah.
a foot wide.
Yeah. Well, really best conditions to do this under.
That's what it looked like when I was there.
So probably the 12th and then here's the 19th report.
Well, there's a construction bridge to look at
Right.
as a deal, so instead of starting from scratch, they got a used bridge, so it's probably overdesigned by 60 times.
So,
I don't know, I
and
think
that's
they
the
told us,
19th,
they
so
told
let's
us,
say,
but it was a construction bridge that someone had as a temporary bridge that they no longer needed, so this will track it down.
have they done any of the other crossings?
I didn't go up, I went to the bottom of the hill, I did not go up to the other crossings to see what was happening there, but there's been no photos of that.
Right, it seems like all the work is focused on the
Right.
main bridge.
Well, school was gonna do the other crossings, right?
Right, this is
Yeah.
Virgilio,
I think I remember them saying that they were only gonna do the
main bridge, and then they
the
were
parts
gonna
that the
have the
contractor
other.
was
The
gonna do
chute and the
first.
main bridge.
Okay.
Yeah,
It did
the-
say something about sort of phases.
Any updates on Nashwater Pond veg management?
Actually, we did get a report, a post-application report, back in July, I think. I think it was when I was on vacation. But I haven't looked at it.
So, can you forward that around?
Yes,
Okay.
stupid vacation.
Which one?
I don't remember. Too many vacations.
Okay, and then, there've been no updates on the low end. No notice to,
To inspect anything, no.
right, the work hasn't started.
They're before the planning board next public hearing.
So-
They haven't even got their.
They haven't cleared all their hurdles. Okay. Meeting minutes. Let's play catch up. Can we? Yes.
Can I jump in on one thing that
Sure.
I need to take off?
What?
Yeah, I don't want to go over you guys. No, for those of you who haven't met me, I'm Mark Stinson with DEP. You know, I provide guidance to the commissions out here in the region. Anyway, comment on the first RDA.
Yep.
It was the riverfront.
Yep.
So, you know, if it was degraded over degraded, it's a
Yep.
wash, which is fine for a -2.
Mhm.
So I half the meetings I go to, people say, I want to issue a negative determination. The first thing they say is, what number? Because there's
Yeah.
5. There's also 6 because of a bylaw, but I don't worry about bylaws.
Yeah, 'cause we don't have one.
So, I still recommend to commissions all the time, you always try to get an improvement over existing conditions. Which typically for a single-family house is just give up some of the lawn to restore it back to native vegetation. So you have that ability under a -2. So what you're doing is you're saving the applicant hundreds and hundreds of dollars by not having to do a notice of intent. So what, you know, the way I tell commissions, this is your only chance to get some improvement to the riverfront. So if you ask for an improvement over existing conditions, propose something, if you know the site or you guys require something, that's the only chance you're gonna get probably in your entire lifetimes to get some kind of improvement, get something back in Mother Nature.
And you can only do that with a 2, with a number 2?
Oh, no,
you have to do an
I'm just saying,
hour.
your riverfront area, the primary requirement you always have under riverfront redevelopment, 1058-5A, the regulations state there must be an improvement over existing conditions of the capacity of the resource area to protect the interests of the act. So, instead of requiring notice of intent or conditions, if you can get the same result by doing a -2 and we're getting some improvement that way, that's fine. So just keep that in the back of your mind. So the only chance you're ever gonna get is to give something back to Mother Nature in the riverfront.
Come on, Mark, I'm like regretting my move now. Feel bad.
At least
Oh, no,
it's
no,
not all
no, no,
impervious.
it's a wash,
I know.
so you don't have to, but it's always a good idea to think about that.
You asked a question, you were going there.
I know.
So in that case, what area could we require them?
Well, typically you want to do an improvement starting along the bank of the river and work backwards, work towards the house. So you start at the resource area and come up. So let's say, for example, the worst thing in the world you see along rivers is a manicured lawn right next to the river. It's the ugliest thing in the world. So if you can say, well, stop cutting the grass all the way to the river's edge and let native vegetation come back up. Even if you get a couple feet of native vegetation coming up, it'll provide food, shade to the fisheries and wildlife, much better than having lawn. And it also help reduce the impacts on potentially erosion.
Is there a certain area that we can require? Like in that case, there was the footprint of the garage. Is that the area that we?
Well,
Or is it?
no, you want to start at the river, not at the garage.
Right, what she's saying is there, like, how do we quantify that?
Oh, that's
So
up
it
to
would-
you.
Okay,
I
so.
mean, there is no definition as to what constitutes an improvement.
Right.
You know, the size. And so everything you look at, it's project here is gonna be totally different from project there, even if they're riverfront redevelopment. So you gotta use your best judgment, what you can, what is appropriate to give back to Mother Nature for that site. If they don't have much room, then you don't ask for much room. If they have a lot, if they have 20-acre parcel and it's all grass all the way, you know, 1,000 feet along the river, I think they can give up a little bit more in order to get a garage.
So it's helpful to have done a site visit to know.
Oh, absolutely.
So does it still apply for the 0 to 100? There's supposed to be no alteration of the
That's,
riverfront area?
so
or-
there's two different ways to review riverfront.
Okay.
One is a redevelopment. Let's say there was a house there. There is a house there that was there in 1996.
Okay.
And they want to do an addition, a garage, anything like that. That's reviewed as a riverfront redevelopment. And there's no requirement for alternatives analysis, so you stay outside the 100. You basically look at square footages, things like that when you get into redevelopment. When you get into new development, undisturbed riverfront, that's when you get into really, no alteration in the inner 100. I mean, again, it all depends on the project. And then even, if somebody has a 3-acre parcel, and there's 300 feet from the river to the front, so you have 200-foot riverfront, then you have 100-foot upland. The house has to go into 100-foot upland. It can't even get into the riverfront. That's when you get into your alternatives analysis. So the regulation says 5,000 square feet at 10%, depending on when the lot is recorded, but that's up to.
Yeah.
You don't have to give them anything.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's new development, not redevelopment.
Okay.
And that only applies to lots.
Well, can you put a road in the riverfront, there's plenty of, say you're 1,000 feet from the river, can you put a road in the 200-foot,
Now, if you don't have to, no.
okay.
It's like wetlands, BBW. You don't fill in, you don't do anything in wetlands if there's an alternative to doing it outside the wetlands. Same thing with new riverfront, new development. You don't get into going to the riverfront if there's a place to do it outside the riverfront. Period.
Period. I got one more, can I ask him a question?
Yeah, I was gonna
'Cause
say,
he's
Mark,
gonna leave.
Mr. Courtney usually has.
I'll go outside.
Well, with Mr. Courtney?
Just, so
She's
you guys
telling you you're making a
continue
mistake.
your minutes.
Come on.
Don't get in his car.
No.
I had to jump out the window once.
You might try
All
to
right,
kidnap
nice
him.
meeting you guys.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, see you, Mark. Thanks.
Okay,
You seem like a nice fellow, too.
I'll let you know.
There's an escape hatch somewhere.
I'll send you an email just so you
I was
know I
gonna
made it
say,
okay.
could you text, yeah, that'd be great. All right, so can we go back to our meeting minutes?
Okay,
Alright.
we have some meeting minutes from June 27th.
So who was here? I think I was here.
No.
No, I wasn't.
You're absent.
I was absent that day, darn it.
Actually, so we have 4 people here. So would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes for June 27th?
To approve the minutes for June 27th.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Okay, so moved.
June 22nd.
Next, July 11th?
Now, we
Or
have
did you take care
the
of
June
that?
27th, that are really the July 11th minutes, because the date didn't get fixed, so.
We have a lot of this.
Oh, and this.
I go away
Yeah,
from
where's
Julie.
Chris? So Melissa, you were there,
I was
Julie,
there.
and Jessica and I were there, so there were 4 people. Yes, that's according to this little list.
Okay, is there a motion to approve?
July 11th.
I move to
So-
approve the minutes from July 11th.
I'll second the
Second.
motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
July 11th.
July 25th.
July 25th. Melissa was absent, Julie, Jay, Ashley, Jessica, Dan was absent, Colleen, so you had enough people this time to do it.
Okay, is there a motion to approve?
Jeez, it just totally screwed up the formatting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from July 25th.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Moved. August 8th.
Things go really to hell on August 8th.
Because I did the minutes, that's it.
So are we suggesting some revisions?
Well, there are a couple of
To
revisions.
discuss? Okay.
The date wasn't correct.
I may have been here, just.
Yes, so we should just print new ones, but,
Yeah.
and also, he had himself absent.
That's
That's a good way to do it.
So Dan Buttrick was present?
Dan was present, Colleen was present, Julie was present, and Jay was present. So I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from August 8th as adjusted.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
So we'll print
Okay, so who's gonna get
And
those
who's
to
gonna
the
get all of
clerk?
those to Barb?
Because that
Who's gonna get them to
website
the
needs
city
to stay
clerk?
updated.
Can I just email them to her?
Yes.
So I will just print out new copies with the.
As a PDF.
Yeah, as the
Okay.
corrected things, and
Yep.
I'll
And then
send
you'll print copies of those for us to put in our binder.
and I'll
Awesome.
print copies.
Okay, so, we received a request for determination of applicability from Mr. Gall, represented by Berkshire Design Group, regarding installation of sewer manhole on an existing sewer pipe to the rear of the house at 33 Florence Road. This is in the buffer zone of intermittent stream and bordering vegetated wetland based on knowledge of the area, saying to connect to the sewer. So we have not put this on an agenda yet because it has not been, I have not received proof.
What was the address? Apologies.
33 Florence Road. So a number of questions arise, one of which is, I understand that Mr. Gall owns that property. We have not received proof that it went to DEP. Mark, I asked Mark to confirm, but he.
Mark
Stinson.
Oh, okay.
And
Not
then,
Mark, isn't
not
it?
Mark Darnold.
Right, okay.
I was talking to Mark Stinson about other matters that are, I wanted his input. And I guess the question is, has this been filed and has a public notice been published, or, so we need to keep an eye out for that.
Do you want
I'll
me
reach
to-
out to Mark Darnold
Okay.
at Berkshire Design and ask these questions as well.
You're gonna do that?
Yep.
Is it possible to approve it while DEP is doing
This
their-
has not, well.
It doesn't have to do.
It's not on that
Okay.
property. It's
Oh.
33 Florence Road.
It's a separate parcel from that.
Yep. Has the city approved any connections to the sewer?
No. Not that I'm aware of. That's a question for the city engineer. I think that they informed him of, what they informed him at DPW was that they couldn't approve it until he got permission through Conservation Commission. I think.
Okay. All right, so we have a few questions to answer
Yes.
before this.
It's not in the text description, but I believe they're also putting in a new 8-inch pipe that goes towards the road. If you read between
Which
the
would make
lines.
sense because they jacked a pipe onto the road previously, earlier this year, outside our jurisdiction.
So that's already in place, the pipe that's on there?
Hmm?
The pipe that's on the drawings is already in place then?
Question for the applicant.
This says new sewer versus proposed, so.
What's the resource area?
This is not a drainage ditch, this is this is a mapped intermittent stream.
There's also a mapped wetland.
With a mapped wetland, so that has not been delineated. So, any questions to ask?
Yep.
Are we allowed to ask the purpose of the?
I will ask Mark Simpson. Because that's concerning. If we can ask why he's building a sewer pipe to nowhere. I want someone to tell me I can. So. All right. So, gentlemen, you've been waiting so patiently. Is there anything in particular?
Oh, no, we're just.
You're just
Watching the rest of
passing the
the
time? The most pleasant evening
I always
I'm sure
felt,
that we've had. in
I always
the-
used to feel sorry for boards when everyone walked out, so I figured I'd stay till the end.
Either that or you just missed the
Just missed
attending
it,
city
just-
meetings.
exactly.
Oh, MACC memberships, Dan Metric, Cody, Julianne Musa, Jessica Harwood, Ashley Chris, Colleen, and Jen. She got the long arms. I'll hold on to Ashley's. All right, woo, new members. Does anyone?
Do they always give us these?
I don't know.
I don't think we get, we received cards before.
I think I have one from last year. Really? I use it everywhere I go.
Do you have it laminated?
No. You borrow it off somebody's site, you just wave your card.
All right, we have copies of all of these. We have a copy of this. We don't need this. So you forwarding those emails was tremendously helpful.
Oh, good.
Especially to me.
Oh, good. I will continue to do so. I don't want to see.
You don't have
click it
to,
in,
you don't have to
so-
print them. I'll print them.
Okay. Oh,
Sorry, I printed them.
that's okay. I'll just
we're not
continue to
able
forward
work
them
on-
then.
Yeah, that's, it's
Okay.
just so much, easier to not have to print them from the city's email system.
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
So,
no problem.
all right,
I'm happy to continue to forward.
we need to file. Anything else?
There's a bunch of filing stuff that we printed on last week, right?
Seriously? What?
Yeah.
Oh, I wanna, okay,
For-
all right.
for-
So is there any other business to discuss, Jess? No? Does everyone seem like they'll be able to attend the next meeting?
I
I
believe so.
don't think so.
Yes, great. All right,
I do want you to look at the building permits though before
Yeah.
we go.
the process.
Yes, and I
And
think
there's
there's
something waiting
actually,
for Cottage Street?
there's two planning board applications that need your sign off too.
Okay,
So let's do that now.
okay. But we don't need to be in a meeting for that.
No, you don't have to be in a meeting
Is there a
because you
motion
sign
to
off on the
Motion
line
to
drawing.
adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Opposed?